is Brock. He's the first gym leader in the first ever Pokemon games, Red and Blue, and he's like kind of garbage. And so today we're gonna talk about why Brock's team is bad and how you could fix him to make Gen 1 better. So Brock is a level 12 Geodude with the moves Tackle and Defense Curl, and a level 14 Onix with Tackle, Screech, and Bide. Look, I know, it's like, what, 25 years later? And sure, hindsight is 2020, but I'm just so confused still as to what the studio was thinking when making this team. And to first really understand that, I'm gonna need us to jump really far backwards. Okay, imagine being the 7-year-old playing the first ever Pokemon game for the very first time. There's a lot of very complicated ideas in this series that we just sort of take for granted now. Things like type advantage, understanding the starter type trio, physical and special attacks, even things like levels or damaging versus non-damaging moves. To the kid in 1999, or really just anyone ever playing Pokemon for the first time, all that stuff is completely new. And the reason I'm highlighting this is that I really think the job of Brock should have been to convey these basic concepts to the new player. It's not that they don't do it at all, they just do a really bad job of it. You see, neither of Brock's team members learn rock moves by the level they appear in this gym. In Generation 1, opponent movesets were always just the last 4 moves a Pokemon had learned, apart from the TM the trainer would give you. And so in this case, both trainers just have the normal type move Tackle. So I don't know, to me it feels like a glaring issue that the starter gym doesn't really teach you about enemy type advantage. It wouldn't be until Misty that you actually see a gym leader send off super effective moves. But at the same time, I can also kind of see what they were thinking. Like maybe they didn't want to make it too hard, or maybe they didn't want to introduce too much too soon. Except the problem here is that with Brock, they do introduce a lot very soon. Like, you know what doesn't make sense? Brock's signature move is Bide. And people listening, like, this is an enigma which has eluded me for over 20 years now. It's bad, it's random, it is just such a weird choice for the first ever gym leader. Listen, I might be a little bit too passionate about this, but just hear me out. Bide is the move that makes the user take damage for 2 to 3 turns, and then it releases double the damage taken back at the enemy. Okay, listen, we're sitting in 2023. We all know that Bide is a really bad move. Whether you're in competitive or doing a playthrough, this should just never touch your team. So we never want to use it on our team, and with that knowledge, I think we can also accept that it's an awful signature move for any gym leader. But again, let me reiterate. To me, it feels like they didn't give Brock any rock moves, either because they didn't want to make it too complicated or too hard. We're currently dismantling the argument about making it too complicated. And the problem with this is that to a new beginner player, Bide is actually a fairly complicated niche move. Like, remember, you're out here remembering grass beats rock. And Bide is really the first time a unique move is getting shown off to the player. So put yourself in the beginner player's shoes. A move like Bide is gonna have a bit of weight, like, oh, okay, wow, crazy strategy going on here. I think I'm kind of getting what Pokemon is all about. Except the problem is that Bide is never used again. And a concept like this is never really even touched on again throughout the entire game. Pretty much all the gym leaders from here on out, except for Erica and Koga, exist to just damage you, right? Like, they've got sleep strats, poison strats, but every other gym leader are just attack you. And then for whatever reason, we've got the introductory boss fight of this entire series just running this like super weird niche strategy that you'll never see again. I'm sorry, I'm passionate about Bide, but you gotta hear me there, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's a terrible move, and it does not teach basic concepts to a new player. Now listen, I'm never gonna get over Bide, but maybe, let's just say, like, they didn't want to give Brock rock moves because they didn't want to make him too hard to the new player. Except the problem with that idea is it doesn't work either, right? Like, again, as a beginner player, as a completely fresh person to the series, you have a 66% chance of picking the right starter for this fight. Like, you literally one-shot both Pokemon while being under-leveled on Brock. And again, it's 2023, I might just be digging way too deep into this, but I ask you, what does that teach the beginner player, right? Like, I get that they want to emphasize super effectiveness, but there's a big problem that's being missed out here. I feel like Bulbasaur and Squirtle almost teaches the player that if you are super effective, you're like free. Like, it's just like a one-hit KO, automatically. The problem with that is that the new player is going to miss that both of these Pokemon you're facing are 4x weak to water and grass. So I feel like it kind of gives you a distorted view on exactly how good type advantage is. But that's not even the biggest offender, because remember, we have that sad 33% crew that chose Charmander on their first playthrough. In that case, your experience with this game is going to be awful. Because outside of Bulbasaur and Squirtle, the only other option to easily deal with Brock is leveling up Butterfree to get confusion. The entirety of everything else you can catch up to this point in the game is not very effective against Brock. And so I don't know, I just feel like that is a terrible introduction to the series for a player. I get that they say like Charmander is hard to train, but that must have been an issue for a lot of kids growing up. So what does all this mean anyway? Well, from a pragmatic standpoint, I just feel like Brock's purpose as a gym leader shouldn't be to be hard or easy, but more so it should be there to teach about some of the core ideas in the game. Depending on the starter you choose, Brock is either really easy or really hard, and I feel like that just gives you a distorted view of the game. So how do we fix Brock? Well, this fix is going to be quite simple, but actually fairly hard, as there's not a lot of levers we can pull to change Brock, right? It's early game, he's low level, so there's not a lot of things we can affect to make this fight make more sense. I think a good place to start, though, is with move pool. The only rock moves that exist in Gen 1 are Rock Throw and Rock Slide. Rock Slide is out because it's just way too strong for this point in the game, but for some reason, Rock Throw deals 50 damage with a 65% chance of hitting. Now, for comparison, Bubble is 20, Vine Whip is 35, and Ember is 40, all with 100% accuracy. So I think the way to fix Brock is to first fix the move Rock Throw. Let's just make it a 40 damage move that has a 100% chance to hit. Now, still, neither Onix or Geodude would learn this move yet, and I think we should just replace the TM slot of Bide with the move Rock Throw. This will be the move that Brock gives you on beating him, and he will also give it to his Onix. Again, to not make it too hard, Geodude can just keep Tackle. Now, the other thing we're gonna do is make Onix a pure rock type. I know, that sounds crazy, right? Like if you make this change for Gen 1, this is going to have some butterfly effects throughout the entire franchise. But I mean, at the same time, Onix is also trash, so like, not really. The reason I want to do this is I think we just need to remove that 4x weakness on one of the Pokemon. Because now if you hit it with a Vine Whip or a Bubble, it's going to be like a 2-shot, not a guaranteed 1-shot. To me, I feel like that makes the fight a little more balanced while also giving the player a better view of what this game is actually like. But overall, since this is actually a boost to Onix, I think we should lower it 2 levels down to 12 to sort of compensate for that. It loses 2 levels, but also loses 2 4x weaknesses. We'll also make Geodude level 11 just to make Onix keep that ace energy. Now overall, this fight is still going to be really hard for anyone that picks Charmander, but I think ultimately it does make the fight more balanced, and more importantly, it would set the player up with a realistic view of the series and better equip them to move forward.